The air raid siren shattered the silence that covered a jittery nation for most of the day and sent Israelis scurrying to the shelters once again.
All citizens in Israel are instructed to immediately put on gas masks, enter sealed rooms.
It was all done without panic, but with a dogged, methodical sense of self-preservation.
Do not force a gas mask on the child.
But this time, the Army said there was no attack. Sources said there had been indications of an imminent Iraqi strike, which led to the alert, a false alarm. Earlier today, Israelis were digging out of the real thing, pushing through the debris left by several Iraqi missiles that hit Tel Aviv and Haifa overnight.
A tragedy, but I hope that we will overcome.
While police patrolled the streets dressed in chemical warfare clothing, hospitals waited with water hoses to ward off the effects of any non-conventional attack. Religious Jews clamored for gas masks this morning, while others made a run on bakeries, stocking up on bread necessary for their ritual Sabbath dinner tonight. This afternoon, Muslims prayed at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem's Old City, gas masks at the ready. Palestinians, too, are feeling the pressure.
Most Palestinians began to realize, that this war has no winners whatsoever.
The big question today is, will Israel retaliate?
If there is more attacks against us, we should interfere. We should do something.
After last night, the government decided not to attack, but today, Defense Minister Moshe Aarons made it plain. We must do what has to be done, he said. There is no room for bargaining. If we are attacked, said Mr. Aarons, we will retaliate. I cannot tell you how, and I cannot say when. Peter?
Dean, the Iraqis are already having an effect of putting on all of the chemical weapons clothing in Saudi Arabia is closing down the troop there, and it's grinding. It must be grinding on Israeli nerves.
It is, Peter, and as if we needed something else to make people jittery, earlier this evening, apparently a Soviet satellite re-entered the atmosphere and did so in such a way as it came over Israel with a large burning contrail. And that sent people scurrying to the shelters. An air raid siren sounded in Tel Aviv, although not here in Jerusalem. And almost immediately after that, the all clear sounded. So it was a scare, and fortunately, it came to nothing.
As people observed, thanks very much, Dean Reynolds, when it turned out to be a Soviet rocket booster re-entering the atmosphere, everybody wondered what the odds would have been like for that happening on this particular night to the Israelis. President Bush said last night he was outraged by the attack on Israel, and he spent considerable time today trying to see it that Israel did not join the war, and that he reassured the Israelis that the U.S. was offering protection. The war, of course, could threaten the coalition now lined up against Iraq, particularly the Arab elements. At the White House, ABC's Britt Hume.
After a long and anxious night in which he had received continual updates on the war and on the Iraqi attack on Israel, the president again warned against any expectation this war will be quick or painless.
There will be losses. There will be obstacles along the way. And war is never cheap or easy.
Despite the continuing danger to Israel and the prospect of an Israeli reprisal, the president, after praising Israel's restraint, insisted the alliance against Iraq is solid.
And we are in close touch with our coalition partners, and this coalition is not going to fall apart. I'm convinced of that. Yes, Helen?
Mr. President, 2 days ago you launched a war, and war is inherently a two-way street. Why should you be surprised or outraged when there is an act of retaliation?
Israel is not a participant. Israel is not a combatant. And this man is elected to launch a terroristic attack against the population centers in Israel. And it is an outrage, and the whole world knows it. There can be no consideration of this in anything other than condemnation.
In comments no doubt mirroring what the administration is telling Israel, Mr. Bush said the U.S. is doing all it can to disable Iraq's Scud missiles.
And we are going to be redoubling our efforts in the darndest search and destroy effort that's ever been undertaken in out in that area. And I hope that is very reassuring to the citizens of Israel.
The president acknowledged the difficulty of knocking out mobile missiles, but promised in more general terms that Saddam Hussein's military is being destroyed.
I can guarantee the world that as every hour goes by, he is going to be less able to respond, less able to stand up against the entire world.
After telephoning Israeli Prime Minister Shamir to say that he had been, quote, devastated at news of the Iraqi attack, Mr. Bush went to the Pentagon for a detailed briefing on the war, to include a look at the Pentagon's videotape of U.S. bombing raids. The president will also receive daily briefings at Camp David, where he is spending the weekend. He can only hope the news will continue to be as good as it has, not just about U.S. success in attacking Iraq, but about the lack of much Iraqi success in hitting back. Peter?
Britt, I realize these are early days, but as they go on, how's the president beginning to define or perhaps even redefine victory? And where does Saddam Hussein himself fit into the picture?
Well, the insistence has been made again and again, and it was made today, that the goal has not changed, and it is the withdrawal of Iraq unconditionally from Kuwait and the restoration of the original government there. Some strong words have been used. They've been knocked down. The word surrender was used by Marlon Fitzwater. He said that was a mistake, and the president indicated so as well.
Does the president, do you think, at this point have a vision of post-war Iraq?
Well, I think he recognizes that a lot will have to be done there in order to make sure that Iraq does not threaten its neighbors again. And I also would add, Peter, that from everything we've been told, there does not seem to be any intention on the part of this administration to destroy Iraq as a nation. It is an effort to hit military targets, yes, but not to destroy or take over the country.
Okay, Britt Hume, thanks very much. As we said, our reporting from Iraq is reasonably sparse. As we've also said up to this point, Israel did indeed show the kind of restraints that the U.S. has been seeking and has not yet struck back at Iraq. But U.S. officials say the possibility of Israel doing so is a very real one indeed. Here's our national security correspondent, John McCarthy.
If Israel retaliates, one major concern is that Israeli jets seeking the shortest route to Iraq would fly over Jordan or Syria to get to the missile sites. That overflight itself could touch off a broader war, with both Jordan and Syria vowing to shoot down Israeli planes if they try it. Another question is whether mixing Israeli planes into the already crowded skies over Iraq would create hazards for everyone, since the Israeli warplanes would not be integrated into the coalition attack plan. U.S. officials say that is not a particular concern because the United States will be able to electronically track and identify Israeli planes if they enter the fight. The greatest worry, of course, is whether the Arab members of the coalition will pull out rather than fight on the same side as Israel. Thus far, the coalition appears to be willing to accept Israel's right to defend itself.
We are part of the coalition, and to put it simply, you don't have to worry about it.
Even so, many besides the U.S. are urging Israel not to retaliate.
Israel has the right of self-defense, and no one can take this decision from them. But we believe that restraint by Israel at this time would be interpreted as strength, not weakness.
The U.S. has a similar message for Israel, that the best way to defeat Saddam Hussein politically is to deny him getting Israel, to draw Israel into the fight. Peter?
John, the relationship between the U.S. and Israel has always been a tricky one. Has this made military cooperation improve and perhaps even improve by the hour?
Oh, I think that cooperation between the U.S. and Israel has improved, political, military, all sorts of different kinds of cooperation. And I'm sure the Israeli government at this point, Peter, regards the United States as being somewhat in Israel's debt because of the way Israel has responded all through this crisis, keeping a low profile from day one, and now not retaliating for something that Israel traditionally would immediately retaliate for.
Okay, John McCarthy at the State Department. Just a reminder, Saddam Hussein still has those mobile missiles in his armory. When we come back, what it looked like when the war began over Baghdad, and support for the president, not always a given in time of war, and making plans for the Super Bowl and other sporting events, no matter what.
I swim, I jog, I love junk food. Sometimes even I get constipation.
When it happens to you, X-Lax pills give you a choice. Extra gentle for a little help, regular for a little more. X-Lax, for regular people who sometimes aren't.
Once a year, the automotive world holds its breath awaiting the announcement of its most prestigious award. From all the new models to choose from, only one car dominated the competition in rigorous tests to earn the 1991 Motor Trend Car of the Year award. The Chevrolet Caprice Classic. It's simply breathtaking.
found in the prescription drug Motrin. Same as in Motrin, in non-prescription strength.
If you want the same medicine found in prescription Motrin, wouldn't it just be simpler to ask for Motrin IB? Non-prescription strength Motrin IB. Accept no alternatives.
A correspondent from the Reuters news service, Mahmoud Yusuf, paints a grim picture of Baghdad today. He calls it a ghost town. All shops, markets, and restaurants shut down when the first bomb hit 2 days ago. Food is going bad in refrigerators because electricity is out. So are the phone lines. The flow of tap water is getting weaker. Only militiamen, soldiers, and a handful of civilians are on the streets. And as we said, there are surely casualties, perhaps civilian casualties. We just don't have an idea. The most vivid pictures we have seen from Baghdad are those we saw for the first time last night. Baghdad at 0 hour, when the first attack against the city took place. Since then, ABC's Gary Shepard and his camera team have made their way to Jordan's capital, Amman. So this is his report on getting across Iraq at night and that first night attack on Baghdad.
The opening salvo of the war caught Baghdad completely off guard. All the city's lights were still on, and there was no warning, not even an air raid siren. Then it began. ABC News cameraman Fabrice Moussis used a special night vision lens to record the massive attack, which drew intense anti-aircraft fire from artillery batteries scattered on rooftops throughout the capital. Some of the airstrikes caused blinding explosions as the bombs hit their marks. Authorities were not able to achieve a complete blackout until the attack had been underway for more than half an hour. Occasionally, you could actually hear the American planes passing over the city before dropping their payloads. Incredibly, some vehicles were still moving on the roads as the attack was taking place. Terrified residents ran into the streets, seeking the protection of nearby air raid shelters. This shelter in the basement of the Al Rashid Hotel, where most foreign journalists were staying, was also used by hotel employees and their families. This round of air attacks lasted for more than 3 hours before it finally ended just before dawn. After daybreak, the city was in shock. The most visible damage we could see was to the International Telecommunications Building, where phone lines to the outside world were cut off. Yesterday afternoon, the 6-member ABC News staff left the Al Rashid Hotel and left Baghdad on this road, as seen in a recent satellite photo. Along with other journalists, we began what turned out to be a difficult and dangerous journey to the Jordanian border. ABC News cameraman Fabrice Moussis was one of those on the trip. Fabrice, we saw a lot more than Iraqis leaving Baghdad, didn't we?
Yes, we saw some Scud missiles mounted on trucks headed for the Jordanian border. This was only 4 or 5 hours before the raid on Israel. We saw a few before the town of Radba, and again further down the road a few more. They were in small convoy with their lights off, except once in a while a small light, and there would be a few other vehicles joining them and a little anti-aircraft light truck.
After it got dark, it got more and more dangerous on the highway toward the Jordanian border, didn't it?
Yes, I felt it was particularly dangerous because we were on a highway, and on both sides there were airfields that were being attacked, and we were very vulnerable. And one airfield, the area is called H3, past the town of Radba, was being heavily shelled by what I think were phosphorus bombs, because there were a lot there. When they would hit, you would see a succession of white lightning, and it was very intense fire.
At one point during the air attacks, we were parked on the side of the road with our headlights out, fortunately under a highway overpass, because flak from the artillery was landing on the highway only 50 yards ahead of us. We finally arrived here in the Jordanian capital 400 miles and 24 hours after we left Baghdad. Gary Shepard, ABC News, Amman.
There is more evidence today of the enormous concern and interest in the events in the Gulf. More Americans watched President Bush's speech the night before last on television, the one when he announced the beginning of hostilities, than any other event in television history. At his news conference today, President Bush sought to reassure the troops in the Gulf that the country is behind them. Yes, he said there are some protests against the war in the country, but he says the country is fundamentally united. Predictably, in the first moments of a crisis, there was also a coming together behind the president. But support can be a very slippery thing, especially if the fighting drags on. With a perspective, here's ABC's Jeff Greenfield.
Do Americans really rally around the flag once war breaks out? Memories of World War II say yes. But history says that presidents often face intense domestic opposition, even in the midst of war. President Lincoln faced intense dissent in the North during the Civil War. There were draft riots in New York in 1863, and a year later, Lincoln was almost unseated by a peace campaign.
President Lincoln, it may surprise you, had only 5 of 17 New York City newspapers on his side during the middle of the Civil War.
Your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign war.
Isolationist sentiment was very strong in the days leading up to World War II. Only the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor unified the nation.
We are determined to preserve our freedom, no matter what the cost.
President Truman was widely backed at first for sending troops to Korea in 1950, but as the Bush appears very aware of this history.
This will not be another Vietnam.
At this point, President Bush has much to gain from a quick, decisive victory, and he would probably retain support even for a long war if the cause appeared clear. But history does show that a protracted war with an uncertain purpose is as heavy a political burden as any a president has to bear. Jeff Greenfield, ABC News, New York.
Well, so far the president certainly has the support of the Congress, though in some cases somewhat grudgingly. The House today voted overwhelmingly for a resolution offering unequivocal support for the men and women of the armed forces. It then went on to say the Congress commends and supports the efforts and leadership for the president as commander-in-chief. We noted that the word unequivocal is reserved for the support of the troops. Despite the war in the Gulf, the people who run professional sports say they don't plan to cancel any major games set for this weekend. The National Hockey League All-Star game is tomorrow. The professional football playoffs are on Sunday. Both leagues say that as of now the games are still on. And so is the big one, 9 days away, the Super Bowl. Here's ABC's Dick Schaap.
Despite the war raging in the Gulf, despite a concern for terrorism that has brought concrete barriers and bomb squads to Tampa Stadium and extra security to the airport, despite the feeling of some sports columnists and fans that games have no place at a time of war, Super Bowl 25 is, as of now, going to be played on schedule a week from Sunday in a stadium jammed with 75,000 spectators. Just as football games were played minutes after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Just as football games were played 2 days after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, a decision former NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle still regrets. But Rozelle has no argument against playing Super Bowl 25.
It won't be the celebration if the war is still going on that usually is if it's played, and I think it will be, but it won't be the celebration, the national holiday that's been in the past.
ABC Sports is proceeding with its plans to televise the game to a worldwide audience of hundreds of millions of people, including the troops in the Middle East.
When they sit back here, they want something they can look at and watch. I'm sure they want to see us still playing football.
Tampa authorities say they have not had a single threat of terrorism, not even a rumor.
We would suspect that traffic will be our biggest problem.
The ancient Greeks sometimes found war threatening their games, too. They reacted differently. They postponed their wars. They declared a truce so that they could stage their Olympics. Dick Schaap, ABC News.
When we continue with this special expanded edition of World News Tonight, we'll look at how the high-tech weapons are performing in the Gulf, and we'll talk to our resident military analysts about how the war seems to be going from their point of view. Hope you'll stay with us.
War in the Gulf. Monitoring the world 24 hours a day. Stay with ABC News. And tonight on 2020, inside the mind of Saddam Hussein, how he could lose this war and still end up a hero. Watch 2020 tonight.
Hi, I'm Rick Dees, and I'm personally inviting you to the biggest laugh you'll ever have in bed. So be sure to laugh your sheets off later tonight as we take you into the night.
For the right reaction, if you want satisfaction, see the folks at Freeway Ford. If you want a great feeling, down-to-earth feeling, see the folks at Freeway Ford. Freeway Ford. For people you can count on, service you depend on, see the folks at Freeway Ford. Freeway Ford. For the best deals in Columbus, come to Freeway Ford.
The Value Store.
What about burgers?
Nah, hot dogs?
Nah.
Looking for something different from a fast food restaurant? Welcome to the club. Hardee's introduces the Turkey Club. Fresh sliced turkey breast, crisp bacon, lettuce, and ripe tomato, all sandwiched between Hardee's own multi-grain bun. And it's easy to get into this club, because right now the dues are very low. Introducing the Turkey Club sandwich, only at Hardee's.
Adventures on the Planet Earth, Monday evening at 8 on WTVM.
This hour, the planes of Operation Desert Storm are continuing their virtually non-stop bombing raids on targets in Iraq and occupied Kuwait, and there has been very much of a cost. 3 more U.S. jets have been shot down since yesterday, each with a 2-man crew. So far, the Allied forces have lost 8 aircraft. We do not know how many Iraqis are being killed, but considerable is perhaps an understatement. We begin this portion of our broadcast with another look at the air war and the part that the Marines are playing in it. Here's ABC's Jim Hickey.
For 48 straight hours, it hasn't stopped. Hundreds of fighters and bombers have flown more than 2,000 sorties against Iraq, against Saddam Hussein.
We're going to go out and keep doing it until we have to. He quits, he gives up. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line.
But today, there were weather problems. Marine pilots said heavy clouds forced them to return to base, unable to accomplish their mission. The FA-18s refueled, bomb racks still loaded, a dangerous thing to do. The cloud cover hampered their search for Scud missiles. It also made it too difficult to evade Iraqi surface-to-air missiles.
It became questionable whether we were going to actually be able to see the ground or not, so we called an abort.
Despite all the sophisticated electronics, fighter pilots like to actually see the approaching SAM missiles, so they can outmaneuver them.
We know that those guys are there. They know that we're coming, and they are throwing a lot of lead at us.
Not all the planes, however, are affected by the cloud cover. Behind me is a Marine Corps A-6 Intruder. It is a versatile all-weather bomber designed for close air support of troops on the ground or for bombing runs deep inside Iraq. It is fully loaded and ready to go. It is loaded with deadly cluster bombs. After the repeated attacks on missile batteries and power plants, Marine pilots say they are now going after ground troops, Saddam Hussein's elite Republican guards.
These are good troops. You know, they're not going to scare that easily, but I think definitely if you look at a sustained around-the-clock bombing campaign against them, it's going to get to them.
And pilots say already the Iraqi anti-aircraft fire is becoming disorganized.
We've heard them as far as their ability to communicate and to control their air defense system.
This kind of surprised me. I figured that they'd be firing a lot more than they are. They are firing a lot, just not where I was.
Peter, the pilots tell me that despite the bad weather and despite their inability to locate all the Scud missiles, they still consider their bombing campaign on schedule and on target.
And we keep hearing, Jim, from the military high command that they're under very tight control to stay away from civilian targets or anywhere where civilians might be. Is that the sense you get from pilots, too?
Yes, that is the sense, Peter. They tell me that they are being very exacting in their bombing runs, very precise. And that's another reason why many of them return today rather than seek out targets of opportunity. That's not their mission, not their job. They have specific targets, and if they can't find them, they come home with their bombs still loaded.
That's the point I was wondering if you're going to make. Thanks very much, Jim Hickey in Saudi Arabia tonight. If the reports from the field turn out to be accurate, the pilots flying for the Western Alliance have managed to hit a large percentage of their targets, not necessarily destroy, but hit. The Pentagon is clearly pleased. As ABC's Bob Zelnick reports, a lot of new, expensive new weapons systems have apparently been performing very well.
In World War II, bomber crews used primitive bomb sights to try to hit their targets. Most of the time, they missed by up to half a mile.
Launch.
Missile away! This week, cruise missiles controlled by computers scored direct hits on 51 of the first 52 firings. Laser-guided bombs also scored direct hits. This pinpoint accuracy allows a single bomb today to do the same work as thousands of less accurate World War II weapons. One F-15E packs the military impact of an entire squadron of B-24s. Today, the U.S. began operations against Iraq from the Encirclet base in Turkey. This will allow U.S. fighters to pursue Iraqi planes that try to flee. In addition, U.S. bombers will be able to attack targets in Iraq without refueling. Sources here say the battle against Iraqi air defenses has gone so well that Allied aircraft today stepped up their attacks against Iraqi ground forces, particularly the elite Republican Guards. And for the first time in the war, Apache helicopters and A-10 Warthogs began hitting Iraqi armor. Only after Iraqi ground forces have been thinned out by airstrikes will the U.S. be ready to launch its ground campaign. Another sign that the ground war may be drawing closer was the movement of about 12,000 Marine amphibious forces into the Persian Gulf. From positions about 75 miles off the coast of Kuwait, they're expected to launch helicopter and other quick strikes against Iraqi forces in Kuwait and southern Iraq. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
Joining us this evening for a brief conversation are our two resident military analysts in Boston, former Marine General Bernard Traynor, and in Washington, Tony Cordesman. Tony Cordesman, let me ask you first, there's a kind of surreal quality to all this discussion about high-tech weapons. It's almost as if we're not discussing human beings sometimes. Give us an indication of what you think it's like on the ground from the Iraqi point of view.
I think most Iraqis have no idea when they're going to be attacked. They have to watch constantly. They have to stay in shelters. They have to stay dispersed. Any kind of cohesive movement is almost impossible. And as we shift from the air suppression phase of the war to air attack in detail, it's going to get worse every moment and every day. Anything they do, every time they move, they'll never know when something's coming over the horizon and is going to hit them before they know they're under attack.
So our supposition that there are likely to have been heavy casualties, certainly among the military, is a reasonable one.
I think the heavy casualties are really just beginning. And in the Iraqi forces, they're going to mount very steadily. And remember, we now have an almost total initiative. We can keep up these air attacks almost as long as we want, and the worst reprisal we now face is a few scuds.
General Traynor in Boston, the military will not yet accede to having complete superiority in the air. But if it gets it, does the air war just continue? Do you just keep pounding the Iraqis without advancing on the ground?
Oh, yes. I think on the strategic side, what you're trying to do, of course, is to break the political and industrial and military infrastructure inside of Iraq. In Kuwait, you're looking to soften up the ground forces for the ground attack, as Tony has already indicated. But before you can do either one of those, you have to ensure that you have air superiority, which means you have to suppress his air defenses and destroy his offensive air capability, whether it's missile or whether it's aircraft.
General Traynor, as you've been listening to the military briefings today, and there have been a couple of them, what's your own impression about how the campaign is going?
Well, of course, we haven't received much in the way of information, Peter, but obviously it's going well, and one has to wonder why the reticence to give information. About the only thing I can think of is that we have been enormously successful in the air campaign in breaking down Saddam Hussein's command, control, and communications network, and there's concern in the Pentagon that maybe the best source of information that Saddam Hussein may have is from American television.
Okay, let me go back to Tony Cordesman for a second. The Pentagon did say today, Tony Cordesman, that Saddam Hussein is still in command of all his forces. They also said that only 8 to 10 Iraqi planes have been hit so far. Why so few, as far as you can tell?
I think virtually all of them are dispersed, hidden in revetments, and sheltered. As long as we can keep the runways from operating, there's no reason to kill all of those aircraft, no reason to risk our pilots. We can suppress them without killing all the aircraft.
So other than the meat grinder, which war on the ground would become for everybody, is the most potent threat still the Scud missiles, which can't always be located?
I think that is one threat, but the one we cannot forget is that he has chemical artillery shells, multiple rocket shells somewhere near the Kuwaiti border. That is one last form of retaliation that is open to him.
General Traynor, I think almost more than anybody in the country, you've had experience with the Iraqi forces, as we've said before. How do you think they're standing up to this relentless assault on their positions, particularly those in Kuwait?
Oh, I think it's taking its toll. I would imagine that in the officer corps is the one that's suffering the most because they really understand the power that's coming to bear against them. The troopers, you know, they just will hunker down and do what they're told to do, but I would imagine this is having a very disturbing effect upon the military leadership of the Iraqi armed forces.
General, thank you very much. Tony Cordesman, thank you very much. We'll continue with this special edition of World News Tonight in just a moment.
Had it up to here with antacid taste.
Then get great flavor up to here with extra strength Malox Plus Cherry Cream. Up to here with mint cream. Up to here with lemon Swiss cream.
Malox, you're the best.
It's the strongest, best tasting antacid.
Along with the glaciers, a string quartet. There are eagles and old world antiques. Midnight Sun, Rosenthal china, the finest service, and the spouting of whales. Surely there is no land on Earth more magnificent and wild than Alaska, and no way more civilized to see it than aboard the ships of Holland America, the world's best cruise line.
Honey, I have 2 surprises for you. First, Honey Nut Cheerios is made with nutritious whole grain oats. And second, the dog has learned to sing.
That's incredible. Honey Nut Cheerios, nutritious whole grain oats?
Surprisingly, Honey Nut Cheerios is more than just delicious nuts and honey. It's made with nutritious whole grain oats.
It's incredible, incredible, yeah.
My sentiments exactly.
It's a Honey Nut Cheerio.
Look at me, enjoying corn on the cob, thanks to Super Polygrip.
Super Polygrip forms a seal that holds so tight, many denture wearers can enjoy more of their favorite foods.
Even corn on the cob.
Super Polygrip.
The Israeli factor. It is still not clear if Israel will retaliate for yesterday's Iraqi missile attack against Israel. If it does, it raises again, in fact it's already raised, the question of whether the Arab members of the anti-Iraq coalition will abandon ship or stick with the United States. The biggest question mark is really Syria. ABC's Charles Glass is in Damascus today.
The only reaction in Damascus tonight to the Iraqi missile attack on Israel is no reaction at all. The Syrian capital remains as calm as if it were 1,000 miles from the Middle East, instead of on the borders of both Iraq and Israel. Government-controlled Syrian television tonight did not mention the Iraqi bombardment. It did report the U.S. bombing of Iraq without comment, and it quickly denied reports that Israeli jets flew over Syria today on their way to bomb Iraq. That denial was the only public reference to a private Syrian fear. Since Secretary Baker's visit here last week, diplomats say Syria and the U.S. have been in regular contact over Syrian concern that Israel not become involved. If that happened, Syria could have to reassess its role in the coalition. Syria could turn a blind eye to a limited Israeli response that didn't violate its airspace. For years, Syria did exactly that whenever Israel bombed Palestinians in Lebanon. Syria condemned Israel, but it did not go to war. Charles Glass, ABC News, Damascus.
Egypt's ambassador to the United States today affirmed his country's support for the anti-Iraq coalition. He said it would hold even if Israel retaliates against Iraq. And in Egypt, a random survey finds some support for that position in the streets. ABC's Don Kladstrup is in Cairo.
In a Cairo mosque, Issam Daraz prayed for peace.
I don't like what's going on now. I hate the war.
A war his cousin, an Egyptian soldier, is having to fight. A war Issam blames on Saddam Hussein.
I hate Saddam. Absolutely, I hate him, but he make a big problem for us.
Even though much of the Arab world regards Israel as its enemy, most here are dismayed about Iraq's attack. This is very dangerous, he says. Israel didn't cause any trouble. I don't understand what's in Saddam's head. What's he trying to do?
No, I'm not happy because Saddam, he don't have to make a fight with Israel.
While government officials called for restraint by Israel, some Egyptians said they hoped Israel would strike back. That'll make me real happy, he says, because Israel didn't start it. Many Egyptians think the end is near for Saddam Hussein, that his attacks against Israel represent one of his last cards. Don Kladstrup, ABC News, Cairo.
In Jordan today, the parliament declared its support for Iraq in the war and said it holds America fully responsible for every drop of blood that is shed. The resolution does not authorize the country to fight on Iraq's side. The Jordanian military is on its highest state of alert since the 1967 Arab-Israeli War. ABC's John Donovan is there.
Eastern Jordan, today, an army convoy heading in the direction of Iraq, whose attack on Israel raises the danger of war spilling over into this country. Still, in the capital Amman, many applauded the reach of Saddam Hussein's missiles. Gone was the shame felt yesterday when it seemed Baghdad could not respond to the U.S. attack.
It's time that the West and Israel realize that Arabs can hit and hurt.
But others, including the Crown Prince of Jordan, are concerned about a widening war. Touring a camp set up in the eastern desert for refugees from Iraq, he repeated that if Israel and Iraq enter Jordan to get at each other, Jordan will try to stop them.
Clearly, not only the army, but Jordan would take a terrible bruising, but in a confrontation with any aggressor, we would clearly stand up and be counted.
Not many have crossed the border this week, a few thousand at most, but officials are expecting many more, possibly 750,000. If Jordan is drawn into the conflict, the flow of refugees across this border could slow to almost nothing. Jordan at war would be a safe haven for no one. John Donovan, ABC News, at the Jordanian-Iraqi border.
When we come back, the effect of the war on the environment, if it got out of hand, it could be devastating. And today's high technology in the air from the pilot's point of view.
Did you know it's tough getting business people to agree on what's best? Yet business people do agree. Nobody beats AT&T when it comes to long-distance service. In an independent poll where users rated their carriers, AT&T was unsurpassed in the best technology and best service categories and was voted #1 in overall satisfaction. So now that we've agreed on AT&T, it's back to business as usual. Quality, another AT&T advantage.
How fast does Dristan nasal spray start working to clear up congestion?
Already? That's fast. It's starting to work already.
Dristan nasal spray starts to work in seconds.
I'm a year old today.
I just turned 7.
I'm 1. On the day these people had their heart attacks, they started life over again. Now they eat a diet low in cholesterol and saturated fat that can actually help lower their cholesterol and risk of heart disease. Fleischmann's margarine is playing a part in that. Fleischmann's has 0 cholesterol, low saturated fat. Diet can help add years to your life. Will it take a heart attack to change yours? Fleischmann's margarine. Many happy returns.
Color Tile's bigger, better clearance sale. Ceramics galore for walls and floors from 59 cents each. Great buys. Big savings on DuPont Stainmaster Carpet. Only $12.99 installed. Yes, vinyl style by the sheet, by the tile. 42% off. And introducing window colors. Mini blinds in every shade. Buy one, get 2 free. At Color Tile, bigger and better.
I swim, I jog. I love junk food. Sometimes even I get constipation.
When it happens to you, X-Lax pills give you the choice. Extra gentle for a little help, regular for a little more. X-Lax, for regular people who sometimes aren't.
Saudi Arabia has decided to close one of its oil refineries near the Kuwaiti border after it was hit yesterday by Iraqi artillery. Most of the Saudi oil fields are not within easy range of Saddam Hussein's weapons, but Kuwait's oil facilities are right under the thumb. Iraqi troops have reportedly wired many of them with explosives. Were they to be detonated, the effect on the environment could be disastrous. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
Picture the war ending in quick victory as American planes destroy enemy airfields and Tomahawk missiles wipe out command posts. The Iraqis are devastated, but as they retreat from Kuwait, they do the single most destructive thing they could. They blow up 300 of Kuwait's oil wells, poisoning the air with tons of black soot. This is the smoke from just one American oil fire. Picture that rising across an entire country.
The people who are at risk from the ecological and environmental damage is far greater than those people who are at risk from the war itself.
Scientists and anti-war activists paint a dark picture of environmental fallout from a Gulf War. They cite reports that Iraq has booby-trapped 300 to 500 of Kuwait's oil wells. In a worst-case scenario, they say the wells could burn for months, creating a cloud of soot half the size of the United States. Carried eastward by the jet stream, it would block sunlight beneath it, perhaps causing drastic cooling to the land below. The possible result? Massive crop failure as far away as India, China, or the Philippines. One estimate says sunlight in those places would be reduced by half.
Temperatures at the Earth's surface could go down by about 5 to 10 or maybe more centigrades. That is, in Fahrenheit, about 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And that by itself is a climate disaster.
There are skeptics who say the fears are exaggerated.
It still does not come out on our models as anything that's going to give more than local pollution, local black clouds, a local cooling.
But nobody knows what would really happen. There have never been hundreds of oil well fires at a time. And meanwhile, there are other fears. What about radioactivity after attacks on Iraq's nuclear facilities? What about toxic fumes from the wreckage of their chemical weapons depots? Some say Iraq might use oil as a weapon, the way it did against Iran in 1983. It might unleash giant spills in the Gulf to block naval attacks and clog desalination plants that provide drinking water.
This is not hollow speculation about environmental consequences. This will be a war of unprecedented damage, both human and ecologic.
Ironically, the country most likely to be hurt by Iraq's plans would be Iraq. It would suffer the fallout before anyone else does. But scientists say the rest of the world should be sobered. Modern war is more destructive than ever, especially when it is fought right on top of the powder keg. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
The price of oil, which plunged more than $10 yesterday, fell again today, more than $2 a barrel. It is now under $20 for the first time since Iraq invaded Kuwait back in August. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials gained more than 23 points to close at 26.46, and the trading was again very heavy. A smaller oil bill helped to narrow the U.S. trade deficit in November, down $1.3 billion to $9.7 billion. The deficit, of course, is the difference between what the United States imports and what it sells abroad. Now, some of the other news today, another defection among the circle of close advisors to Mikhail Gorbachev. Nikolai Petrikov, Mr. Gorbachev's senior economics advisor, has quit after accusing Mr. Gorbachev of blocking economic reform and declaring open war, as he put it, on the Soviet republics. One of America's biggest airlines is shutting down, and they say for good. ABC News has learned that Eastern Airlines will stop all flights at midnight. The company went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy nearly 2 years ago. It has 18,000 employees. The company will continue its efforts to find a buyer. The federal government revealed for the first time today how much money it paid to Manuel Noriega over the years when he was running things in Panama and also working clandestinely for the United States. In the U.S. court papers show the CIA and the Army paid Noriega a total of about $300,000 over 31 years. Noriega is still in a federal prison awaiting trial on drug charges. We'll be back in just a moment.
What would it take to get you to change from Advil or Tylenol? How about something new from Bayer? New Bayer Plus with Stomach Guard. It's got it all. Bayer Plus has Bayer aspirin for powerful pain relief. To bang back headaches, muscle aches, and minor arthritis pain. And New Bayer Plus has more. Stomach Guard to help prevent stomach upset. So bang pain back with New Bayer Plus. The wonder drug worth trying. It's tough on pain, gentle on your stomach.
A lot of you insist on eating wheat thins and oat thins because they taste good. But the whole idea behind these crackers is that you can eat them without feeling guilty. That's why they're baked, not fried. I mean, eat them because they're delicious, and you miss the whole point.
Had it up to here with antacid taste.
Then get great flavor up to here with extra strength Malox Plus Cherry Cream. Up to here with mint cream. Up to here with lemon Swiss cream.
Malox, you're the best.
It's the strongest, best tasting antacid.
Those who think only short-term may take a bearish view of the times ahead. But those with a long-term perspective will see the future as a whole different animal. At Merrill Lynch, our insight and understanding can lead you to the opportunities that lie ahead. Merrill Lynch, we're bullish on the future.
As we all know, a lot of regular programming has been washed away because of the Gulf War, which included Primetime Live last night. One of the reports they were preparing was about the enormously complicated task of flying a modern jet fighter. We have appropriated the report by Diane Sawyer because it answers questions about this high-tech war which the U.S. is fighting. Here it is.
If you were an F-15E pilot like those in the Gulf, you may get one day or a few hours notice that it's your time to fly.
Attention, attention. This is not an exercise.
You're handed your destination and given computer coordinates to program in and use as a kind of roadmap to the target. When you arrive at the tarmac, the bombs and missiles have already been loaded onto the plane. The ones you fire at the ground are so heavy, they can only be lifted with a crane.
You'd probably go out an hour ahead of time to do an inspection of your airplane and be sure that everything is the way it should be, no flat tires, things like that, and that there is no hydraulic fluid dripping and all this sort of thing. Check the security of your equipment on the airplane, be sure nothing is loose. And then about a half hour ahead of time, you'd probably climb in and strap into the aircraft with the help of your crew chief.
Retired Colonel James Coyne has written a book about the F-15E. He says its high-tech flight suit is so confining, it's like strapping the plane onto your back. Tell us what you're wearing.
I'm wearing a Nomex flying suit, which is flame retardant. The zippers all over it, of course, as most fighter pilot suits are. Heavy boots to protect me if I have to bail out. Over that, I've got a G-suit, which encases my lower torso and my legs.
G-suits. Without them, the force of gravity would suck the blood out of your head and cause you to faint.
The G-suit inflates, encases, and compresses the vessels in your legs and in your lower torso to keep blood from draining out of there. That helps keep blood in your head.
Captain Gary Wolver is an F-15 fighter pilot who agreed to man the simulator in Langley, Virginia. As he shows, the throttle doesn't move. It's really a handle full of sensors that simply respond to the slightest pressure from a pilot's hand. An F-15 can reach 40,000 feet in about a minute. It may take about an hour to fly from central Saudi Arabia toward a target in Iraq, refueling in the air along the way.
You'd fly up behind the aircraft and below it. You would see in the lower back of the aircraft the boom operator, and he would fly the boom down from the tail of the airplane to just above the fighter. And the boom operator then would fly the probe, as it's called, into that hole there on top of the top forward part of the wing and transfer at a very fast rate of fuel.
So the approach toward the target is ready to begin. The computer has been programmed with the coordinates of the site. The infrared comes on. Night vision is clear.
In the F-15E, you can be as close as 100 feet, doing 500 or 600 miles an hour. The pilot is looking ahead through the head-up display, it's called, which utilizes an infrared system called lantern, which, among other things, enables him to see in the darkness as if it's daylight.
When the pilot is about 30 minutes away from the target, he signals the computer to wire the missiles. The pilot will flip the plane over to locate the target, turn back up. As Captain Wolver shows, it only takes an instant, and he is ready to fire. Now show us where on the stick and the throttle you have your missile launching buttons.
Okay. What we have here are basically a trigger that's up front here, you can see here, and also the missile button is this red button up here.
By the way, Captain Wolver expects to be flying off soon to Saudi Arabia.
And of course, as we all know, war is so much more than technology. There are pilots missing today and any number of Iraqis killed. We simply do not know how many. Once again, the major developments on day 2 of the Gulf War. The message from the White House was again, so far so good, but President Bush warned that getting Iraqi troops out of Kuwait will take some time. Allied forces seem to be using every minute to bomb targets in Iraq and Kuwait. The U.S. military says there have been about 2,000 combat air missions a day. Not every plane, as you now know, returned safely. 3 more American planes shot down since yesterday, bringing the number of U.S. pilots missing in action to 7. Regarding one of the most important and most difficult targets of today's raids, Iraq's mobile Scud missiles, 6 of them were knocked out today according to the Pentagon briefings, but the military acknowledges that there are more out there. And the Israeli government said it will respond to last night's missile attack by the Iraqis on Israel. It just won't say when. That's our report on World News tonight. We will be here throughout the evening and over the weekend, keeping you up to date on any developments in the war in the Persian Gulf, Operation Desert Storm. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
Released by the U.S. military in Riyadh, 6 U.S. planes have been lost to date.